Countdown to Eternity starts now.
Well, hello, my dear brothers and sisters. I want to welcome you to another episode of Countdown to Eternity. I am on with the great Tom Hughes, and Tom is riled up. I'm going to just say this right now. He has got some energy in him over the craziness of the season that we are facing, from war to rumors of wars to literal insanity. And by the way, don't get me started on the fact that it seems as though Christians are going to be the ones that are going to concede the union because of their lack of desire to get involved on the voting. But I don't. Maybe we'll talk about that if we have time. But there's a lot of stuff to talk about, bro. Stuff in the Middle East is going crazy. First and foremost, let's start with, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, and I'm ticked off. So let's just start.
I'm sorry, I can't help but to laugh on that one. Okay, what are you ticked off about? Let's go. Let's get into it.
Everything. Okay. All right. Well, let's just start with the reality of voting. You didn't want to get to it till the end. Listen.
Well, we can do it now, bro. That's
okay.
fine. You're just going to light me up. You're going to get me ticked off.
We have to talk about Israel and what is happening, what they did. We need to get to that reality and where all of this is going, because people want to know. James, listen, 5 days ago, the military talking heads were saying there's no way Israel could ever reach that far into Iran. Well, guess what?
They did.
They did with like 1 million different planes. They went in there and just thrashed them, right? So that's another subject. We'll get to that in the end. But it's like, just these people out there are saying this isn't going to happen. Israel's not going to exist. Israel's just, if it wasn't for the United States, Israel wouldn't have anything. We have a traitor in the Biden administration, probably several, who was giving the information over to Iran regarding Israel. I mean, there's so many different things. But here's some truth, more truth. It was Carlo Villano who again spoke out against the Vatican and said Kamala is an infernal monster who obeys Satan. You want to know something? She is.
Bro, why are you doing this right now? Look, you want me to lose my mind right away?
I'm ticked off because I'm mad at everything right now. I'm not supposed to be, but doggone it. James, this world is so full of wickedness and unrighteousness, and we have pastors in America who are saying it's more righteous not to vote because they say, well, Trump's a sinner, therefore I'm not going to vote. So what the heck does that make you? Are you sinless, mister?
Bro,
are you? I mean, was it Reagan a sinner? Was it? I mean, you start looking at the history. Was there ever anybody that wasn't a sinner other than Jesus? I am not voting for the Messiah in chief.
Look, I'm going to make myself really clear here, because this is a very simple argument, and it's not even difficult. You don't have to get theological about this. You don't have to get into the ideas that float around in biblical ethics or any of that kind of stuff. All you have to do is ask a very simple question. Who is going to listen to who? Is Kamala going to listen to church leaders? The answer to that is no.
Oh, it depends on what church. I will tell you right now.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Did you see some of those? Listen,
if you're a whore, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Listen to this. Exactly. So you look at this woman who is the biggest promoter of abortion. You have Tim Walz. I saw him in a video. He implied with AOC. Did you see that?
He wants to make her the Speaker of the House.
Yes. So you're telling me, okay, they hate Israel. They want to make abortion just wholesale. Babies will be born and put on the abortion table. That is going to happen with this administration. And if people say you are lying, no. It's already how many states is it already legal for a baby to be born and then put to death afterwards?
Tommy, this is what I keep telling people. Stop talking about what's going to happen and just talk about what has happened.
Yeah, it's already been happening.
When Trump was in office, Roe v. Wade was overturned. He was very vocal in allowing the voices of the pro-life movement to be loud and clear. Tim Walz signed something into law in his own state that allows babies to pretty much die after an attempted abortion fails. I mean, how much worse can it get? This is the same guy that also signed something into law that basically allows a child to decide whether or not they want to be a boy or a girl, whether or not they're XX or XY, and to put parents in jail or penalize parents, have kids taken away if they don't agree. I mean, think about the insanity of that. So just look at what you have. So here we go. And I'll say this, and please don't get me wrong by saying this. You could get me wrong, I guess, if you wanted to, but just take it for what it is. The pastors that are discouraging people from voting, the pastors that are saying they're not going to be voting in this context are just like the guys who stood and told the worship leaders to turn up the music when they were throwing the Jews in the trains on their way to Auschwitz and all these other places. It's the same thing. Turn up the worship music because we're going to pretend as though nothing else is going on and just let it happen. That's what we're dealing with here. And that's the reality of what we're facing.
We want to get along with Satan is basically what they are saying. That woman is a dark woman. Tim Walz is a dark, evil man. AOC, the whole lot of them. I mean, you're looking at this going, they're everybody. No, therefore, they're a bunch of sinners on both sides. Guess what? We're supposed to take light into the darkness. Well, there's too much darkness in politics. Well, then bring the light to it. Instead of sitting there and saying, let's just do a kumbaya here at my church every Sunday, and let's hold hands and let's sing like you were saying with the illustration you're using that literally did happen. Here's something else that happened. I read this in a biography. These soldiers would go to their church on Sunday and sing Amazing Grace and come back to the death camp, and they'd haul off Jews to the gas chambers while singing Amazing Grace. This is what pastors are doing. Wholesale of abortion. This is the offer of babies to Satan on the arms of Molech. And pastors are saying, well, I'm just not going to get involved because both sides are evil. Listen, both sides have always been evil. When is there not? When has there been a perfect person? Tell me when that has been.
That's right. That's
I
right.
mean, and I look at these pastors out there. Listen, Kamala Harris goes before these churches. And they're singing her praises. Listen, this is sickening.
Bro, let me give you a perspective. Can I just give you perspective? Let's just turn the data on for just 1 second and have a real conversation about what this looks like, okay? Trump was in office, and what happens? Roe v. Wade gets overturned, okay? After Roe v. Wade gets overturned, here's the thing that everybody has to think about. Right now, of course, we know Roe v. Wade got overturned after he left office, but it was because of him being in office. So Roe v. Wade gets overturned, and now we have literally double the amount of abortions that's going on in this year. Why is that? Because this administration, this one, Kamala Harris, this regime, have been pushing these chemical abortions in a way that has just been absolutely insane. It's been crazy. So the reality of it is, are you going to vote for the culture of death, or are you going to vote for an opportunity to have your voice be heard, understanding and knowing that the person who's going to hear your voice is very open and is willing to course correct? I mean, it's not that difficult. This is not that difficult of an issue. It just isn't.
Yeah. Well, even this, all a person has to do is ask himself. So if anybody's out there, you're saying you're a believer, but I'm not going to vote. Just ask yourself this question. Why is it that virtually every Democrat I see that's running is saying if the other side wins, they want to end abortion? That alone should show you where they're going. They're telling you.
Yep.
And people are saying, I'm not going to vote.
100%.
I mean, this is just unbelievable. So Kamala Harris, I see her in an interview the other day. I think it was with that guy with the white hair on CNN. And she says, well, I pray every day. Well, I bet she does. Who did she?
With Anderson Cooper. Yeah. Okay. Which Anderson kind of pushed back at her a little bit. But anyway,
and I say, okay, I pray every day. Well, who the heck do you pray to? This is exactly what Paul wrote. In the last days, perilous times will come. Men will be lovers of themselves. Oh, is that Kamala? Lovers of money, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient, unthankful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, despisers of good, having a form of godliness but denying its power thereof.
Yep.
Kamala says, I pray every day. We have these wicked churches who are promoting demons. Listen, that woman, we talked about this last week. I asked you think she's got a demon? You said you bet. How else could you even think the way that these people think without having demons inside of you? And apart from that, if you don't think so, anybody, then why are we going voting or not standing in the way of wholesale Satan worship and giving your babies over to the worship of Moloch. Why would you not stand in the way of that? Why would you not stand in the gap? How are you going to stand before the Lord one day and say, well, I just didn't want to get involved. I just wanted to sing Amazing Grace. Well, I didn't want to get involved. I didn't want my church to get messed up. I didn't want the government putting pressure on me. I didn't want this to happen. We just went along because we were playing nice and we wanted everybody to be so happy. We supported gay marriage. We supported this. Well, yeah, but we just wanted to do a big group hug because God is love. Therefore, let's love everyone. Listen, where's the truth? Jesus is full of grace and truth. Guess what? True love warns judgment is coming.
That's right. No, listen. I think that the
told you I was mad.
Well, bro, look, you should be. I mean, the bigger issue is there's a lot of life at stake. There's a lot of people at stake. We're going to lose our country literally on day one. The very day she gets sworn in, it's a wrap. We have seen the completion of this transformation of Marxism that's going to end up happening in this nation. And I bring this stuff up, and people, look, I guarantee you, there will be a crowd of people that watch us that will say, I came here to watch Bible prophecy stuff. Why are we talking about politics? Well, I'll tell you why we're talking about politics. Because Bible prophecy teaches us that the United States of America is inconsequential in Bible prophecy because it doesn't mention it. And if it doesn't mention it and we are not picking up on those cues, why in the world are we not speaking about these issues? I mean, look, this is not difficult. Jesus tells us this parable. I'm going to actually do a study on this. I'm going to release it next week. Jesus tells us a story about these, and this is a really powerful story, by the way, the parable of the talents. Every time I hear that story get taught, it's taught in context of money, almost always. But Jesus never intended to teach it that way. He taught it in context of just telling the whole world what's going to happen at the end. And in the story, listen to how he says it. He says there was a man who had servants. He went away for a while, and he literally gave each of them these talents. Two of those men, those three men, actually invested those talents, traded, and made the same. And one of them buried it. And then he came back from his long trip. The two men basically said, yeah, we took what you gave us and we multiplied it. We did the right thing. And he said, well done, great job. And then the guy who doesn't do it, he basically condemns him and says he's worthy of hell. And what did Jesus just finish doing? Jesus just finished telling everybody about the second coming. And the picture about him in the second coming is, hey, disciples, I'm going to go away for a while. I've told you these things because I've entrusted you to do something with what you've been told. And when I come back, I expect to find you faithful. So then he tells the parable of the talents so that we can understand it. And everybody seems to not understand that this is in direct correlation with what we're seeing in the day in which we're living. Christ told us that these things would happen. What are we doing with that knowledge? What are we doing with that information? And the reality of it is we're not doing anything with that information. That's the problem right now with a lot of the church. I hear a lot of even Bible prophecy guys going, well, you know what? This is, they're all the same and, all corrupt and they're all evil. So I'm just not going to get involved in the election process. Okay, fine. So you're going to embrace it, basically. You're in a position to do something about it, but you're choosing not to. Okay, you're complicit. And that's the reality.
Yeah, totally. Let me throw this question out to anybody who's listening. If you're a Christian and you're saying, I'm not going to vote, who do you think wants you not to vote? I can tell you there's two groups.
100%.
Satan does not want you to vote because you're a Christian.
Of course he doesn't.
And the Kamala Harris group doesn't want you to vote. So whose voice are you listening to then?
100%. You're 100% right.
No, I mean,
right.
Who else? So you're saying I'm not going to vote? Well, of course Satan doesn't want you to, because it's dark and he wants his way. Of course Kamala and team don't want you to vote. They want to have AOC Speaker of the House and whatever other nonsense that they want. This stuff is so evil. Satan wants to sacrifice babies. They want to continue with their transgender madness. They
Yep.
want your kids to be stuck at the schools.
Yep.
The government runs schools.
The brainwash camps. That's
Okay,
what they are.
as I said, I'm all bent out of shape. Okay, let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
Let's go over to Israel before I get any madder.
Okay.
Okay, Israel. Oh, just last couple of days,
Yep.
goes over to Iran. Does an incredible mission,
Amazing.
just targeting specific military targets. Really has a devastating effect on the military power and might of Iran.
Yep. Very much so.
We have the pagers, we have the walkie-talkies. We have Hamas is just being eliminated, absolutely eliminated. We have Hezbollah is finding out it ain't going. Israel is winning. Israel took out the S-300 launching pads of the Russian launching pads in
Yep.
Iran.
And believed to have taken out a few S-400s, believe it or not.
So I look at this and think this really, what has happened is really, it's just amazing, James. But where do you see this going? Because to me, and I think you have a different perspective, so I want to hear it.
Yep.
To me, this really puts Iran in an embarrassing position. I think it's
Yep.
embarrassing.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Then you have Russian ammo, so weapons that are there that
Yep.
have been eliminated. So what does this do as you look forward, the geopolitical dynamics going forward that eventually has to lead to Ezekiel 38, which
Yep.
you and I both agree Ezekiel 38 is not going to happen tomorrow. But
Yep.
so where do you see this?
So
I was like listening to you on this.
I don't know how different we are on this issue. But what I can tell you is what I'm beginning to see right now is just there's too many things that are happening with respect to the void of commentary by the nations that are directly involved with this that I can't help but to think that there is a corroborative effort that's happening in this context. Okay, let me give you one good example of this. Russia is eerily silent on this. They have not come out. They have not condemned the action of Israel. As a matter of fact, that's even unusual for Russia because when the missile attacks happened the first time in April, Russia basically said, you better not retaliate, Israel, because if you do, you're going to have a problem on your hands. And then in the second time that this happened, there was some talks that went down between Russia and Saudi Arabia, where Russia made some very, why don't we just say this, very quiet threats to Saudi Arabia that basically says they were going to limit the sale of their arms to Saudi Arabia in order to protect themselves or to create defense mechanisms for themselves against the Houthis, which they have great influence in. And so if they were to, of course, protect or defend the position of Israel. Now, this becomes very interesting because anytime you see Israel attacking Syria, Israel is attacking Syria in areas where they have to, in order to access those places, fly over what is believed to be sovereign Russian territory. Okay, now don't get me wrong. Nothing over Syria is technically Russian sovereign territory, but we all understand it to be so, including Israel, because Russia's rear end is so settled within these areas, especially that corridor leading up to Aleppo, that there's no way you can say Russia has nothing to do with the Golan Heights side of Syria. There's just no way, okay? So every time they do this, they obtain, or anytime Israel does this, especially in Syria, they're obtaining permission from Russia to do it. Like that's just the reality of it. And when I say obtaining permission, maybe I can be a little bit nicer about it and say they're working together on it and they're creating, I believe that Russia has created some boundaries as to what they can do and what they can't do. With respect to the missile batteries that we see that were attacked in Iran by Israel, you have to understand the complexities associated with how they even did that operation. The way they did that operation was remarkable. It was at the level of Operation Grim Reaper, okay? To do what they did was extraordinary. They started with destroying their radar systems and the systems that are used quite regularly to detect aerial assets. And in order to do that using fighter jets, that was a feat in and of itself. The way that they did that, the way that they jammed signals momentarily using information, technology that they had located on planes that were flying a little higher overhead that are a lot more difficult to detect. I mean, the kind of stuff that they did to make that first stage happen was pretty amazing. And right around the time that they jam Iran's ability to be able to detect all of this, then they have another band of fighters that come in and destroy all of the ground assets that would be used for ground to air or surface to air defense, as well as surface to surface defense and tools that were used for aggression, right? So a lot of the ICBM type, not ICBM, but ICBM type missile launchers were all taken out in many of the critical Iranian positions, specifically to the west. And what's even more remarkable is once that happened, then the major attack started, where they started blowing up all kinds of military or strategic military things, including weapons factories. One of the things that really struck me as astounding, and probably even more significant than some nuclear facilities, is the fact that they destroyed 4 factories specifically that created solid jet fuel, basically. A rocket fuel is a better term for their missiles. Now, the thing that's amazing about this is the only place they can buy the machines that actually do this or create this infrastructure is from China, and China's production has already diminished considerably. They're already struggling to keep up for many of the things that they're doing because of their energy problems. So now Iran at best is a year away from being able to get that kind of fuel constructed again for purposes of their assets, which, by the way, are also destroyed because they destroyed the factories. And then the other thing that we know, because it's all beginning to come out, is they stayed close to the spirit of what the United States of America told them to do, but yet at the same time, they were still able to destroy nuclear facilities. America told them, don't destroy nuclear facilities. So they said, okay, but the issue that America did not wisely pursue, and I get it, because look, don't even get me into the Biden regime and his handlers. That's a whole big mess, and Kamala and her handlers. But the one thing that I will say is Israel was very smart about the way they complied with the United States of America, in that Israel said, okay, we won't attack any of the broadcasted, reported, and known nuclear facilities, but we will destroy the nuclear facilities that they're keeping a secret from the whole international community. What's Iran going to say? Oh, they destroyed our nuclear facilities. What nuclear facilities? We see them all intact. What are you talking about? Oh, the ones we haven't reported to you. So what they did here was remarkable, and it was brilliant. And what is even more astounding was they were in the air without any major attacks for 3 hours. Okay? Now, you couple that with what's going on with Khomeini, and you realize the fact that we've just now found out that he's very likely on his deathbed, that he doesn't have a lot of time left. Maybe he got poisoned by Mossad. I don't know. But he doesn't have a lot of time left. His son is the one who's lined up to take place. But we've talked about this before. I think me and you talked about this. I know I've made several videos about this. There is a great division in Iran right now amongst the Raisi followers, which, by the way, Raisi is dead. He was dead by that Mossad agent called Helicopter, if you remember that guy. But anyway.
Remember it well.
but he's gone. Abdullahian is gone. They had a camp that represented the slightly more extremist side of things, which, by the way, the same camp are sympathizers of Khomeini. They love him, but they don't love his son, because they don't think that his son is strong enough to carry what he needs to carry. And his son has got a big bark with a little bit of a bite and doesn't have any real reputation, not the way that he needs to in order to be the supreme leader. So you've got that dynamic taking place. And now you've got another dynamic that's getting more complicated. And you've got the dummies that are out there going, okay, Israel, you did what you did. Enough is enough. That's over with. Which Israel's not done. And they can't be over with, because if they're over with, then they're going to set themselves up for a bigger bite by a bigger snake. One last thing I should mention, because this is critical, and you talked about this a little bit. It may have been before we went online, but Russia not speaking says a lot about what happened with their missiles and their assets being destroyed in Iran. Because the one thing that is significant, look, S-300s get destroyed. Okay, Russia allows that to happen by Israel on multiple occasions pretty regularly. And the reason why is because when S-300s are sold, they are trained, the people are trained to run them, and the people that run them are the people that buy them typically. An S-400 gets sold, they're accompanied by Russian assets. How about we just say that? People that are Russian that are actually running those things. So to find out that we don't have any Russian casualties means Russians abandoned that post. And the only way they would have abandoned that post is if Israel told them, we are going to target these devices. You've got some time to take what you need to take, get going. We have no intention of destroying anybody in Russia. We respect your sovereignty. You go ahead and do what you're going to do. What's Putin going to say? No, heck no. What's Putin going to say? I want war? He's a war machine. He literally, if there's anybody in that region that's a war machine, it's Putin. So what's going to happen? I'll tell you what's going to happen. Putin's going to withdraw and say, yeah, go ahead, Israel, and do what you need to do. And then he's going to turn on his, angry side, and Sergov is going to come back, and all these other people are going to jump in, and all this was wrong, and it's going to be done. So that opens up the door for a bigger conversation. And the bigger conversation is what's next with Israel. And when we find out what's next for Israel, what happens after the United States election? That's I'm curious to know what you think about that.
Well, that is the million-dollar question. What's going to happen with Gaza? Does Gaza, is there something like the Marshall Plan that's implemented in Gaza? Does Saudi Arabia at that point get involved? Well, we have two different dynamics, because if Kamala wins, it's going to go, it's anti. It's everything we already talked about. Anti-Israel, pro-abortion. I just see darkness. I can imagine martial law. Even Joe Rogan talked about this problem with martial law if Kamala wins. And he pointed out why. It's already on the books, ready to go. Joe Rogan talked about it. Okay, so you have that. Trump wins. What do you have? I believe you have, well, again, you go back to track records. All you have to do is look what Trump did. You have the Abraham Accords. Regardless of what you think about the Abraham Accords,
that's right.
Is you still have Saudi Arabia. You will have Saudi Arabia back on board. Prior to October 7th of 2023, Saudi Arabia was very, very, MBS, very well, very much inclined to talk about, hey, let's have an agreement with Israel. This is going to benefit us financially. We're not going to deal with the Palestinian narrative anymore, because it was very clear. Jordan was tired of it. Egypt was tired of it. Saudi Arabia was tired of it. And then all of a sudden, October 7th hits. The international community, all of the media, especially in the West, jumps on board and says, oh, those poor Palestinians, or those poor peace freedom fighters called Hamas. What a bunch of nonsense. So I think if Trump wins, it's going to go to, we're going to have something like the Marshall Plan in the Marshall Plan in Gaza, where you're going to have, Gaza's going to be rebuilt. Tons of money is going to pour in. You're going to have peace and prosperity in Israel. It will happen. And as far as Russia and Iran go, guess what? They're going to regroup and they're going to rethink. And I don't think the Ezekiel 38 war would happen until after the rapture takes place.
Yeah, I agree.
With that, if Kamala wins, guess what? Iran and Russia are going to regroup over all this. And it makes sense what you said with Russia had to green light or get out of the way in order for Israel 100%. To do what they did. In Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 7, the Bible says that Gog, or Russia, is a guard for the troops that are going to come against Israel, implying northern, like in the Syria region, which that is happening. So they're a guard there. Okay, so Israel couldn't have done that without that. So either way, Iran or Russia will regroup. They have to send a friendly signal to Israel, because that Ezekiel 38 war is going to come about at a time when we know when Israel does not expect it. They let their guard down. It appears they lay their weapons of protection down. But when Russia, Turkey, and Iran come against Israel, it's going to be a massive war. Iran has been humiliated. So with that, I'm thinking, James, they're going to say, okay, we've got to go against Israel with every single thing we possibly can, because we
Yes.
get our butts kicked every time we go against them. At the same time, what else happens with Ezekiel 38? Well, Sheba and Dedan, aka Saudi Arabia, says, "Are you coming here for the plunder?" So
Yep.
something financially there has to be some kind of um, affluence taking place in Israel that
Yeah.
maybe hasn't
Oh, yeah.
even happened yet. People
Yep.
talk about the gas, people talk about the benefits of the Dead Sea. I think it's something greater than that. So money is probably going to be poured in. Could be the Marshall Plan in Gaza. Could be all of the things regarding the Abraham Accords, the just the initiative, the
Yeah.
to get along, whatever it's called. And you're going to have listen. No matter what Jordan and Egypt say on the outside,
Yep.
no matter
That's
what
right.
we hear about Saudi
That's right.
Arabia saying on the outside,
That's right.
listen, they hate Iran and they hate the whole
Yes, they do.
Palestinian cause. They
That's right.
made it clear with the Palestinian cause was not a way to move forward.
That's right.
So it is going to go back to that, and they're thinking this already. We know
Yeah.
that. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with the U.S. election, though,
Yep.
because Kamala's an evil woman, and that entire regime is evil. And
Yes.
if Trump wins, what can Trump do? What will he be able to pull off with the globalists that are against him? Because the other thing the globalists hate, they hate a strong Israel.
Yeah, that's right.
Because Israel has gone against the globalist agenda for the last year, and they
Yeah.
have not liked that. They wanted Israel to just lay down. In fact, it was during the Obama administration that Obama essentially wanted Iran to be the leader of a new Ottoman empire.
That's
That's
right.
what he wanted. That's
Yep.
why he gave the billions of dollars. That's hence the whole thing with the nuclear deal with Obama. He wanted Israel to have to get the green light from the U.S. and Iran.
That's right.
He wanted Israel to submit. So Israel would not submit to these globalists. The globalists hate Israel. Hence, Antichrist will come out of this globalist state of people, and he's going to turn against Israel. But they're going to pretend to be friends. Iran and Russia also have to pretend to be friends
Yep.
because Israel has to be caught off guard when Ezekiel 38 battle happens.
Yep. No, you're not wrong. And there's one detail about this that I think has to be accentuated on a regular basis, and dare I say, constantly repeated, and that is China's involvement, because China is actually getting so intricately involved in this that they're basically working their way out of relevance. And I think that's kind of an interesting perspective to have, because most people think they're growing and they're going to become more and more relevant. I think they're actually working their way out of relevance. Let me give you an example of this. We're releasing a video later on this week. I think it's Saturday we're releasing this video, either Saturday or Sunday, that basically speaks about the fact that China called a meeting together with what's remaining of Hamas, what's remaining of Fatah, what's remaining of the Palestinian Authority, what's remaining of Hezbollah, and many other of these organizations, and put together this agreement. I think they call it the Beijing Agreement or the Beijing Tact, where they basically want to put together their version of a Marshall Plan that involves Gaza being run by these terrorist organizations while China oversees them. Well, let me just explain what China is in essence doing. China is about to become Russia when Russia was messing with Afghanistan. It's not going to work. It's going to backfire on them in ways they cannot begin to imagine. The name of their game is to want to secure the energy resources that they see themselves foundationally lacking, and they're going to lose in that battle because Russia itself is going to end up turning on China. They have to. There's no way they can't, because when their energy resources begin to flounder as a result of the need that they have to be able to supply all of Europe again, you're going to create a condition that's going to be very, very, very technical. And one of the bigger issues behind this is, and you said it, you were golden with this. You said Saudi Arabia doesn't want it. Egypt doesn't want it. You mentioned Jordan. Let me say one thing about Egypt. Egypt is very excited about Saudi Arabia normalization. And the reason why they're excited is because the Suez Canal. Right now, they're not getting the revenue that they were always hoping to get out of the Suez Canal because of the Yemeni Houthis and what's happening on the Red Sea. If they can change the trade paths, if they can actually change the corridors, if the land plan that they have gets actually done the way that it's supposed to get done, well, then Egypt is instantly already incentivized by Saudi Arabia, and they're going to end up making a lot more money than they were just operating the Suez Canal. That's a very important variable that a lot of people are missing. Not to mention the fact that the president of Egypt was made famous for kicking out Islamic Brotherhood. So let's just really think about the complexities of that just in and of itself.
Oh, yeah. Plus, James, you would probably remember the facts on this. I think it was back in 1957. On the books, there's a transportation corridor. I believe it's going from the Red Sea all
Yes.
the way up near Haifa or something, or
Yes.
Ashdod or something like that, isn't it?
Yes. Yes,
And
that's
this
right.
this is an agreement with Israel to do this. So they want to bring about all these things. It's going to benefit everybody around Israel as long as they get rid of the Palestinian problem, the Hamas, this stuff. And Israel has been dealing with it with Iran. And so everything is going this direction. So we live in remarkable days. If we start to put it into this place, and also when it comes to China, just something else to throw out, because we always think of this in the way of the West, but you already put it out there. Zechariah chapter 12, God says, I will cut into pieces anybody who starts to deal with my people in Jerusalem. And
Yep.
guess what China's trying to deal with? God's going to deal with the China problem. China has so many problems. You already mentioned the rocket fuel. China has so many internal problems.
Yep. Yep.
Listen, they don't even have baby girls anymore.
Yeah,
They've got an enormous population problem because what, they're going to have 100 million too many men, or 200 million too many men, or something like that. Not enough women to marry. China's got more problems than we can even imagine. Their population decreased because of the things that they've done. But now come against Jerusalem, God says, I'll cut you into pieces. That isn't just reserved for nations of the West. That's reserved for every single people group that come against Jerusalem. That's what China's trying to do.
Yeah, and then think about this, because this becomes also very important. You mentioned this. You mentioned this corridor, this trade corridor that goes from the northern portion of the Red Sea all the way up through like this area, probably around Haifa, like you said, and then eventually that gives a pathway into the Mediterranean all the way out to the Atlantic if necessary. But the reason why that becomes hugely beneficial, if that happens the way that they are going to make it happen, is if you were to look at a map of the Red Sea, you could see the countries that are on the African coast, and countries that are become instant beneficiaries of this is Egypt, Sudan, potentially Eritrea. Eritrea might be too close to Yemen, but the whole idea is you bypass all of the dangers that are represented by the Gulf of Aden and this area where Yemen touches up with Djibouti. That whole area is completely bypassed. Like it's just it becomes inconsequential. So think about it like this: if you're at Port Sudan and you want to create a bridge or a pathway for some of your material to come across into either Saudi Arabia and go out in the direction of India or Pakistan, or you need to go the other way where you have to go north, and you don't want to mess with Egypt or Libya to be able to do that, and you want to cut off and launch from this area of Haifa, which, by the way, becomes a lot more strategic for the speed by which you're able to deliver things. You could not only drastically increase the level of security that you have in getting your product there, but you can also decrease substantially the cost that it would take to get it to where it needed to go. And then what's really interesting is if you can get it into this Haifa area, heck, dare I say even Tel Aviv or any of these areas along the coast, okay? They're talking about building a massive port in the Netanya area, okay? Like if that type of stuff happens, you could solidify a whole new world of trade routes that actually become a launch pad. And not to mention the fact that you also create a new pathway from the southern portion of Iraq, where you actually see the construction of Babylon beginning to happen, where Kuwait is, all the way across the way, bypassing the Persian Gulf altogether. So there's a lot of amazing stuff that's happening here, and all of this goes to what the Bible tells us we're going to end up seeing in the last days. It's part of the geopolitical infrastructure.
That's absolutely amazing when you think of it. And you know what? As long as they have the Hamas problem, it won't happen. But guess what? Even that, I believe even that has come about for Israel to deal with it, to make a way for everything that you just described.
100%.
Everything's got to go that way. And it's remarkable when you think about it. Why else would Saudi Arabia say, wait a minute, Russia, why else would Israel lay down their weapons unless everything goes the direction that you're saying. That's remarkable. Did you know we're like way out of time, like an hour?
Yeah. Yeah, I know, dude. We're at the 40-minute mark, which we're supposed to be done at the 30. All right, bro. I'm going to give you the final word. I
All
think
right.
some of this stuff kind of cheered us up a little bit.
Hey, that second half was so much more cheery. Hey, listen, everybody. Don't forget, James is speaking at Pastor James, the one you're looking at right now. Your
Me?
mentor, everybody. Him. At the End of the World Conference coming up on Saturday, right, James?
Yeah. I'm
Saturday,
excited.
November 9th. November 9th.
Yeah.
James Kaddis in person. Register. If you haven't register, come on out and see him along with everybody else that's going to be speaking. It's going to be a great conference. And don't forget, also, all of these things come together. They're a reminder of the great hope that we have. I mean,
Yeah.
Jesus is coming. That's what we taught. That's our great hope. He is
Amen.
coming.
Amen. Amen. It's exciting stuff. And that's all I can add. I think you kind of cheered me up, Tommy. Can I just say that? I was a little mad at the beginning, but you got me
I was
cheered
really
up.
mad at the beginning. Until you start talking about Israel, but that was really, James, that was really, really helpful to see everything in that context, probably for all of our viewers, because I don't think they hear that stuff almost anywhere. The direction that this stuff's going to go.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've said this many, many times. I think Christians who study Bible prophecy should be the best geopolitical analysts in the world. Because if you know what's coming, you're able to connect the dots when you see things begin to form. It's not difficult.
Here's the problem. You know it and I know it. Too many who go into Bible prophecy, it becomes about sensationalism.
Yeah.
Is the rapture going to take place today? Who's the Antichrist? I know who the false prophet is, that kind of stuff.
Nonsense.
Get off of that and start looking at these things. And that was a great program.
Yeah, it's fun too. It's fun. Like that stuff is enjoyable. That's why your conference, I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to the conference.
Oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Because you're going to have guys do really good analysis. You have some great guys coming.
Some great speakers that are coming. It's going to be over the top. It's going to be over the top. It's going to be it's going to be incredible.
Bring earplugs, everybody, if you're going to be there live, because I'm going to be loud.
Yeah, that's so Brandon. Yeah.
What, Brandon doesn't like me being loud?
No, he's loud too.
Oh, he is?
You know what I told him? I said, you're a white James Kaddis. That's what I told him.
All right, let's go, Brandon.
Okay. Hey, thank you for having me on today.
All right, I love you. Guys, I seriously, I really, from the bottom of my heart, we are so grateful that you watch us. We know that you have lots of other choices of people that you can watch. We're grateful for that. I sincerely hope, I know Tom does too, that you enjoyed this as much as we've enjoyed making it. We love you guys, and we pray that you'll continue to keep your eyes on Jesus. Once again, on behalf of the great Tom Hughes, this is James Kaddis, and we want to thank you for joining us for another very fun episode of Countdown to Eternity. God bless you guys. We love you. Keep your eyes on Jesus.